Grand Rising and welcome. I am very cool, and today I'm going to talk about the Occult Symbolism Bingo. This is a game or a tool that I came up with. Recently I went to see a movie and I had trouble writing down all my notes in the dark theater, and I thought how nice would it be if I had a checklist or a pre-made list of all the things I anticipated seeing in a movie, and that's kind of where this idea came from. So I'm going to be explaining how it works and using Wicked as an example. Now, a quick disclaimer, I claim to know very little about all of these topics. I am simply pointing out the symbolism and connecting whatever dots wherever else some of these symbols or iconography exists in media. I do not proclaim to know what any of this means. I'll also say this is not an exhaustive list. I'm sure there's a ton of stuff that I'm missing, but for simplicity's sake, I combined quite a few topics to put it all on the board. So the purpose of all this is I'm just going to talk a little bit about each of the slots for the Occult Symbolism Bingo card I made, and I'm using Wicked as an example. This will help you identify and provide insights to all these different symbols. Like I said, I'm going to focus less on the meaning, but I'd like you to pay attention to the presence of each of these things found throughout media. Now, quickly, I'd like to talk about the organization of the card. There are 5 columns, and each column will represent a different category. I just tried to organize it, in some sort of way. Column 1 being biblical. Anything, person, places, things that may relate to a biblical symbolism. It usually represents spiritual truth. So that will reside in column 1. Column 2 being coded language, neutral images or words that convey a hidden meaning. Column 3 is MK Ultra. Now please don't look to me to explain what MK Ultra is. Just the bare minimum though, it's a CIA operation using psychological torture and brainwashing techniques to influence their subject. So a lot of the symbolism used throughout that study is also mentioned in our media. Column 4 and column 5 are going to be really similar. Column 4 being Stanley Kubrick, and then column 5 being Freemasonic symbols. There's a lot of overlap with this, so you can think of column 4 and 5 as a bit interchangeable. Like I said, I just tried to organize this in some sort of way. And without further ado, I'm just going to go through what each of these squares mean. And again, there's going to be some comparisons to other media in here as well. So we're going to start off in the biblical column with the Tower of Babel. Throughout the Wicked movie, you can see a couple of symbols that represent the Tower of Babel. There is a lamp in Madame Morble's office that resembles the Tower of Babel, as well as some architecture in Oz whenever Elphaba meets the wizard. And then this image down below is a supercomputer, a core processor. I think that those often look like the Tower of Babel as well. Again, I'm not proclaiming that this means anything as much as I'm pointing out similarities. So the next thing that we saw in the movie, again, this is in no particular order from how the movie presents itself, but at the beginning of the movie you see the backstory for Nessa Rose and Elphaba, and you see that their caregivers are bears. You can see bear symbolism in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. You can also see it in a lot of our advertisements in media. I have here 2 images from a Balenciaga campaign where they had children posing with bears. There's also a fairly popular meme, Pedo Bear, and I think that all of these things are connected in some way. Up next, this is the MK Ultra category in cages and keys. So there was quite a few cages symbolism in the Wicked movie, Fiyero when he takes the baby lion out of the cage in order to go set him free, as well as in the Defying Gravity scene. You see quite a few bird cages in the background. I think it's to represent how they were trapped there, right, running away from the wizard. Cage symbolism is super common in media. I have a clip from Sweeney Todd up top. The daughter character relates to the bird trapped in the cage. And then also Us, right there trapped underground. You can see quite a bit of cage symbolism in there as well. Up next, in the Stanley Kubrick, we've got the all-seeing eye. Again, this is pretty Freemasonic. But you can see in the original Wicked poster, you've got Galinda's one eye. That's the all-seeing eye of Providence. I also saw a little bit of eye symbolism in the jacket that Madame Morrible was wearing. Now, one of the great things about this bingo card is a lot of it's up to interpretation. To me, it looks like an eyeball, so I counted it towards this, but you may see something different. It's, a game up for interpretation. Some other places you might see the all-seeing eye are on the dollar. A ton of advertisements and logos like CBS also contain that imagery. And then finally on this top row we have arches and portals. This is from the Dancing Through Life scene with Fiyero in the library, and it reminds me a lot of the CERN portal, the Higgs boson particle accelerator, which is on the bottom right-hand corner there. You can also see these arches around Madame Morrible. The arches and portals usually represent the entrance to the sacred place or the transitioning of realms, sometimes travel. And look at that, we have our first bingo in this top row. Spoiler alert, there's actually 3 bingos in this movie. I guess you could say that this one was Illuminate confirmed. Jumping back into the biblical symbolism, we have horns and fire. You can see from this top center image, this is how the wizard presents himself initially to Elphaba and Galinda. To me, it looks like the metal up here looks kind of horn-like, and then you have fire in the background. Very descriptive of your traditional devil imagery. In the movie Get Out, you can also see a lot of horned animals. I think that these count in terms of that imagery that I'm bringing up. And I also really enjoy the Hellboy series, and so you can find a lot of that demonic, devilish imagery in the fire and horns that exist there. Now this next one is actually our first square that we didn't tick off. In the Wicked movie, I didn't see any angel numbers, and this isn't limited to a consecutive 3 matching numbers. This could also be the number 13, the number 33, the number 23. There's quite a few important numbers in the occult, and so any recognition of any of those, like I said, I didn't see much in the Wicked movie though. Up next for the MK Ultra symbolism, swirls and nesting hearts. Now this movie is just lousy with swirls and geometric shapes throughout the architecture and the costuming. Some interesting ones I wanted to point out are from the original Wizard of Oz movie, the spiral origin of the Yellow Brick Road. And then this spiral staircase right here is from the Defying Gravity scene where they ascend at the top to, escape from the wizard. And now this image on the top right here, this is from an FBI document that is confirmed images of, pedophilia and things that the FBI look out for. They use this coded language to communicate to one another about, what their interests are. I find it interesting that this triangle shape, the triangle within a triangle, is the same imagery that's on this Jungle Book and Jungle Book disc. And then there's also a Disney Junior show where there's a lion that has this pattern all over its skin. Again, do I know what any of this means? Absolutely not. I just think it's interesting that it exists, and you can connect these things. This heart within a heart example is, I know Lady Gaga has a perfume, and the logo for that is a heart within a heart. I guess they did an event with Elton John here. Let's see, moving on. Up next is the mosaic pavement. That's the black and white tessellating floors. You'll see this very often. This will be in Eyes Wide Shut. This will be in just about any film that has a linoleum floor. It is to represent duality, black and white, night and day, good and evil, right? I think that you can see this very well in the very first scene, the opening scene of the Wicked movie, where you have the mirror image of the hat, as above, so below. It's very Aleister Crowleyan of them. I think that the marketing as well was very evident of the black and white duality aspect, the green and pink. It's just to represent that they're opposites, right? Elphaba being the intellect and Galinda being more of the, popularity aspect. So got a little bit of that there. And then finally, you've got the obelisk, monolith, and reflecting pool. So this is very common in Kubrick's films, the monolith being in 2001: A Space Odyssey, You can also see obelisks that exist in our real world at the Vatican and at Washington, D.C., and they're often paired with a reflecting pool. Now, I didn't see a super clear example of this in Wicked, but there is a scene where Fiyero is standing in front of a bunch of structures that can tend to be obelisk-shaped, phallic-shaped, who's speaking to Galinda, who's standing in front of a lake or a reflecting pool. So I think that goes along with their duality symbolism. Back to biblical, we're going to talk about an object or a person falling or coming from the sky. As you know, the wizard arrives to Oz by the hot air balloon. He came from the sky. And this always pops out to me in Luke 10:18. I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. And that's what the image down below is, an artist's rendition. And up top you see, this is a graphic from Beyonce's Black is King, where you see, there's a ton of symbolism in that one as well, falling from the sky. Next in our coded language is chickens. Now, if you look at FBI and CIA documents, chicken feed, and chicken powder are often used to refer to drugs, methamphetamines. There is also a term called a chicken hawk, who's a pedophile who engage in homosexual practices with young boys, who, are hunting for their chickens, which are the young boys. There's also a well-known pimp named Chicken Joe, who is implicated in the West Memphis 3 case. And he was a prostitute for young boys. And so a chicken is commonly referred to as children, specifically young men. And you can see in the original Wicked movie that they were dealing with chicks, while Dorothy's talking about how she dislikes Miss Gulch so much. And I didn't get an image of this, but from the new Wicked movie, when they are going into the Ozdust ballroom for the first time, right? They're sneaking out of school. They're technically not supposed to be there. And one of the first things you see is the entertainment. The piano at the club is being played by a bunch of chickens. And I think it's interesting that these children or chickens are being used for entertainment. I think that Justin Bieber's video for Yummy alludes to this a little bit as well. And the second time you see chickens in the new Wicked movie is when they're in cages when you go to the downtown scene, right? They're in Emerald City and they're walking around and exploring. So the only places you see chickens are in the club or in the city. So I just thought that was interesting. And this is bingo, so you get your free spot. Up next are the twin pillars or the broken column. Now these are also known as the twin towers. They're also called Boaz and Yakim. This is a Freemasonic imagery, but in the Emerald City, in the wizard's, lair, you can see these two twin towers. We've got the twin towers in New York, as well as Lord of the Rings, with those twin towers as well. Up next is the Blazing Star of Freemasonry. This is the G, the capital G of Freemasonry. It's the star that you wish upon at night. Sirius satellite radio is named after it as well, the Sirius Dog Star. Though I couldn't find any Blazing Star references in the new Wicked movie, I do think it's interesting to point out that Cynthia Erivo, or Elphaba, she played the Blue Fairy in the most recent rendition of Pinocchio with Tom Hanks. So I do think that that's just interesting. Up next for biblical is serpents. Now again, nothing in Wicked really alluded to serpent existence, but that origin lies in the biblical story of the serpent tempting Eve with the apple. You can also see it in other media. Harry Potter's another example. I have the snake cult worship from Conan the Barbarian in here. This is something that goes way, way deep into old media. Snakes and their symbology. Up next, triangles, pyramids, hexagrams, pentagrams, any sort of shape that you can find. Again, I'm not trying to profess what any of these shapes may mean. I'm just recognizing that they're there. So in the new Wicked movie, as the monkeys are flying overhead, you get a view through a 6-sided window pane. You can also notice in the jewelry Madame Morrible wears, she has a 5-pointed stylized star on her neck. I love her costuming. I think it's really interesting. You can find a lot of symbolism within it. And then outside of Wicked, things like the Da Vinci Code, where gematria was really important, the different shapes and the different numbers reveal some sort of truth. Up next, we have butterflies, and this is related to MK Ultra again. It's kind of tricky to see in this screenshot, but as Elphaba singing her I Want song, she's walking through a field, and then there's a ton of butterflies and moths that come shooting out. And so the fluttering of the butterflies is related to MK Ultra and some of the brainwashing techniques that they use there. Alongside it, I just have a couple of snippets of all bunch of butterfly examples that come from Disney movies. They're frequently used in the programming. Up next is the Star Child, or the Chosen One. Elphaba is our Chosen One, right? She's different, she's green, she's magical. And the Chosen One is presented in a ton of different media. We've got Frodo, we've got Paul Atreides from the Dune series, and we've got Harry Potter, right? These are all the special Chosen One characters. Up next is the Ouroboros, which is the snake eating its own tail. Now again, nothing in Wicked really alluding to the Ouroboros. But there is a character in a Marvel series called Ouroboros, and it has to do with time and the cyclical nature of reality, so I do think that that's an interesting connection. And jumping back into biblical, I guess this is kind of Ouroboros related because we have Alpha and Omega, which is the beginning and the end. So over here on the left is an example that I found from a Superman movie. They put the beginning and the end on this missile, which is funny. But in the Wizard of Oz lore, they, unlike our human realm, right, their origin story didn't start with a flood, they started with a drought. And so from this drought, their alpha, they will continue on. And then, and now we already mentioned the necklace that she's wearing, but underneath that 5-pointed star looks like the Omega symbol. So we've got their alpha and Omega, their beginning and their end here in their symbology. Up next is owls. Owls often represent Sophia or the wisdom. So you've got the OVO, right, from Drake. He often elicits the wisdom of the owl. Leslie Knope, who's known as the go-getter of the city of, I forget whatever city she's from, but she is the all-knowing, all-doing Sophia. She often has owls on her desk to help represent that. Now, when Dr. Dillamond is having a meeting with the other animals in Oz regarding what's going on, one of the animals that's there with him is an owl. And I couldn't get a picture of this one, but there's a point where there is a wall that cracks and falls, revealing a hidden image underneath, and it shows that the origins of the Shiz University are actually animals, right? The animal originators, and one of those is an owl as well, and a bear. Up next for the MK Ultra symbolism is the broken mirror or fragments, and this is usually representing the fragmentation of a personality. So you can see also during her I Want song, Elphaba walking around and she sees the broken glass fragments around her. She's doing a lot of mirror work, talking to herself, looking at herself. A good place to start with this if you want to do more research is Alice's Through the Looking Glass. There's also a scene in The Matrix when Neo has like some realization about the nature of his reality, and then there's a shattering of the glass behind him. I also have an example here from The Shining, more mirror work. Saturn is another common symbol you'll see in the media. Again, didn't really see this in Wicked, but it's really any ringed planet, right? Chucky wears one on his t-shirt. This clip is from Captain Phantasmic. It was just a movie I saw on Netflix once. But he's kind of like the Luciferian Force character in this movie. He definitely brings a lot of wisdom, and he challenges the status quo, and so I think it's fitting that he's wearing Saturn imagery. And this is to relate to the black cube of Saturn in Saturnalia, and that's just a reference to what that is. And then our final square is the lightning bolt, right? I mentioned this with Luke 10:18, but Lucifer fell like lightning from the sky. Madame Morrible from the Wicked movie, her superpower, so to say, or her magic ability is within weather manipulation. So there's a great deal of like thunder and lightning going on around her, and I do think that that is on purpose. You can also see some lightning in Harry Potter's Scar. It can sometimes be used as an omen, like in Coraline, where the lightning kind of looks like a claw. And also Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, that has a lot of mythological and occult symbolism hidden in there as well. Alrighty, so that is everything about the occult symbolism bingo. If you guys want your own copy of the card, in the link below or somewhere in the information, you guys will have access to a free PDF, and you can print it out, take it to movies with you, and you can take your notes on, whatever it is that you find. And if you have any questions, my inbox is always open. Thanks.